All right. Thank you all for attending this evening's program, Helping Homeless Pets. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, I just want to say hi to everybody out there. My name's Christina. I run the adult programs here at Bloomingdale Library, and we are recording tonight's presentation, so you can catch this again or share it with friends once it's up on the library's YouTube channel. So this is a great program, and I'm always curious about what to do if you find a pet outside in the world and you don't know what to do, how to help it. We also have a program going on tomorrow in person at the library. So if you're interested in attending that, that's a drop-in craft, and it's going to be from 5 to 8 p.m. And you can come in and make a no-sew bed for cats or dogs, and they look like this. So it's basically two pieces of fleece that you tie together. You cut little strips on the edges and tie it together. It's not stuffed or anything. So you can come in the library tomorrow and make a pet bed for a cat or a dog, and you're welcome to take it home if you have a pet that you know would enjoy it. But what we're going to do at the library, if you don't want to take it home, is we're going to donate it. And so we've reached out to several places to see where we can donate these pet beds, and I know a lot of places do need them. So please come to the library tomorrow if you're interested. I also have instructions that I can email out to everybody in attendance too. So if you want to just make it at home and do your own thing, that's totally fine as well. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce tonight's speaker. Laura Winnie is the Education and Community Engagement Coordinator at DuPage County Animal Services. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much for having me and promoting, helping homeless pets, not just by learning about them, but also, getting out there and doing stuff. So thank you so much for that. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here to talk with you guys, to let you know because we don't always know what the right thing to do is. We don't even know who we can ask for help. So it's always good to have this information. I know that, all of my friends, when they have an animal related question, of course they call me. So what I'm hoping is to make all of y'all the smart friend that everybody calls for help when somebody has a situation come up. So that's what we're here for tonight. And then also, if you find yourself in a situation wondering, what do I do? What should I do? This will help give you some guidelines and, most importantly, let you know who to call for more information. Now, as Christina said, this presentation is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back, share it with your friends, get this information out there. If at any point you have questions throughout the presentation, since we're recording it, do me a favor and throw it into the chat box, if you will, please. And I will get to all of those at the end of the segment, okay? We're all muted right now, so we don't interfere with the audio presentation. And I will be sharing a video at some point as well. So just be prepared for that. And then we always like to hear how we're doing. So Christina is going to share a link to our program survey later on. So let's dive right in. Okay. Now this is a very personal topic for me when we talk about stray and lost animals. Now, obviously, I work at an animal shelter, right? I see stray and lost animals all the time. But even before I started on this journey that led to this career, I was a kid whose dog ran away. Okay. I was 12 years old and my dog escaped from our pet sitter's house and was taken on a wild ride, literally. Was wearing a collar, but the tag had fallen off. So this is Elliot. This is the beagle that I had growing up. He was a fabulous dog. He was amazing, and we loved him dearly. And we sobbed when he went missing, and we did everything that we could possibly think to do. Uh, so we don't want to ever pass judgment when we see that people have lost their pets because mistakes happen. Okay. It doesn't mean that they don't love those pets. It doesn't mean that they were neglectful. Accidents happen. In Elliot's case, he he's a beagle mix, right? So he ran after a squirrel. And I lived at Lake of the Ozarks growing up. So very windy, crazy country roads. He got about halfway home when a second home family, so a family that lived out of state and would come to the lake on the weekends, scooped him up and took him back to their home in Kansas, thinking that he was just another hunting dog that had left a neglectful situation, not realizing that he had a loving family waiting for him. Now, turns out that he did make it back home. We were very lucky in that those people's neighbors were a sheriff's deputy who knew my family. So we were able to reconnect and get our dog back. But for so many people, something like that where, everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing and it ends up with an animal, being missing from their family. Okay. So if your pet gets lost, okay, we want to make sure that we get that photo out to as many people as possible. So if you or a family member or a friend, if they have lost their pet, we want to blast their photo out as soon as you possibly can. Old school flyers still work, okay? Old school print flyers on the telephone poles, those things still work. But now we have social media, right? So we have these boxes that we carry around in our pockets that we can get our pets' photos on. There are lots of local agencies that we can talk to. So first off, you want to call your local police department because a lot of times they get called for animals that are at large, that are roaming around. Okay. Your local animal control, even local veterinarians, you want to let them know that you are missing your pet. And if your pet is microchipped, absolutely, we want to call the microchip agency to alert them that the pet is missing. That way, if anybody calls or searches with that microchip information, they know right away. They've already flagged that file. Okay. We also want to go knock on doors. Most pets don't make it too far from where they've been lost. So we want to talk to our neighbors, if nothing else, so that we have extra eyes on the lookout for where our pets were last seen. Okay. So talk to the people in the vicinity where your pet was lost and make sure that they know that you are looking for them. Okay. This is especially true of cats. Sometimes we see cats outside, we may assume that they're an outdoor cat, and so we don't think anything of it. We don't really think it, oh, I don't need to report that. The cat's just outside. If you have an indoor cat and it gets outside, then that is absolutely something you want the neighbors to be on the lookout for and aware that that cat should not be outside. Okay. So absolutely do not be ashamed to reach out to people. Again, pets get lost for so many reasons. And the way to get them back is to reach out, because what my hope is that you're going to find that magical person that can make that connection to reconnect you with your pet the way that it did with my family with Elliot. Okay. And on the other side of that, we want to make sure that when people are looking for their pet, that we are assuming the best, right? Unfortunately, we see this a lot on our Facebook page when we post images of lost pets. And I will be very honest with you, we are not professional photographers. So unfortunately, sometimes those pets don't look great, okay, in those photos. Let's be fair, the shelter's kind of a scary, stressful place. And sometimes the animals look really scared and stressed out, okay? They may also have been outside for a little bit, so maybe their coats aren't wonderful. We actually had a pet recently break out of their fence mid haircut. So they were in the process of doing the haircut. The family member got called away, was doing something else, and the pet escaped. So when they arrived at our facility, they looked like they kind of came straight from the 80s. There was like a mullet thing going on. And a lot of people called out in the comment section on that pet's photo about how neglected that pet was and how we should be pressing charges. When honestly, it was one, a bad photo, and two, an inopportune time for that pet to get its photo taken because it had escaped mid-haircut. So, there are real people looking for their pets that are then reading those comments. They're already going through a tough time. All right. So let's just remember those classic words, you can choose to be anything, so choose to be kind. All right. Now, moving away from lost dogs, I do want to talk briefly about lost cats because, again, we do hear quite a few of these when we talk to people. One, when we're out in the neighborhood and we see a cat, we might just assume, oh, that's an outdoor cat. Okay. We also will hear people, they'll stop looking for their lost cat because of some assumptions being made, right? Oh, maybe it wasn't feeling well and it just chose to go off on its own to die. This is something that I've heard a couple times. Especially for those that live near the forest preserves, we often hear that I assumed a coyote got it. So I assume there was no point in looking for the cat because it was already gone. Um, if I call for my cat and it doesn't come to me, that means it's long gone, like it's nowhere in the area. And if you find a lost cat, sometimes the assumption is that the owner dumped it on purpose. And many of these are just absolutely not true when it comes to certain pets. So the interesting thing about cats when they get lost, when they go into a stressful situation, is they can kind of shut their body down to the point where they can hide for a long time. So, unfortunately, sometimes by the time a cat feels comfortable enough to leave their hiding space, their family has stopped looking because it has been several days with no sighting. And the assumption there is again that either somebody took it, a predator got it, and the cat is just gone forever. So it's so important to do an in-depth search of the territory because a cat that's not accustomed to being outside is going to freak out. And they're not going to be able to put into context your voice or the sound of the treat bag that's happening outside the way they do inside, right? It's a whole new territory out there. When they're outside, everything is scary, everything is trying to murder them. And the best recourse is just good defense, right? We just hide and we find our best hiding spot and we just stay there until we start to feel comfortable. Okay. So, one of the greatest ways to look for lost cats, since they aren't typically going to respond to calling, shaking treat bags, or anything like that, is actually looking in the dark. So, taking a flashlight, taking, our phone light, and looking for that eye shine, that reflection. Okay. See some wild critters while you're out there doing that. All right, let's not touch what's not ours. But it will help to reveal them when they are in that really, really hidden place. And this may seem silly, but it's also important to make sure that you did a thorough check of the house. Unless you saw the cat go outside, so you know 1,000% that they went outside, make sure that you do a thorough check of the house because if there was an unpredicted loud noise, if the pet got hurt, they may be hunkering down inside just somewhere unexpected. So you can even do this eye shine search inside the house as well. Turn off the lights and go around with a flashlight. Look anywhere that you think they could fit, even look in places you're not sure if they could fit or not, because cats are a liquid, right? Like they can squeeze themselves into almost any situation when they are properly motivated. So make sure to check even some of those unlikely spots as well. Um, for searches that are taking a little bit longer, we might recommend using a humane trap and also putting up an outdoor camera. So a humane trap is a live trap, right? So we put some food in there and it helps to have a camera set up to know like, okay, is my cat hiding somewhere? I can't get to them where they are. Maybe they have managed to find a hole in the porch that you just physically cannot get to. Okay, it happens, right? We know where they are, we just can't get to them. We can set up cameras to track their movements, and then we can use those humane traps to catch them. Now, the key with using humane traps to catch pets is we want to make sure that we only catch pets. So you do need to be able to check on them regularly. That's again where those outdoor cameras can be very helpful because if something not your pet got into the trap, we want to release it as fast as possible. Okay. And then we want to make sure that it's cleaned and properly set up for your pet. Even just being a presence outside. So sitting out there quietly, with out in the chair, maybe out in the driveway, if you have an idea of where you think they might be, just being there where they can smell you, but you're not trying to do anything. Remember that cats kind of respect that standoffish behavior. My grandma was kind of like that. She didn't really like cats. All the cats loved her because she saw her as the most respectful person in the room because she never tried to do anything. She just let them be cats. So we can take a page from that and just sit still, nice and quiet. It can also help if you're listening in for rustling, any meows, cries, anything like that. Okay. It can take weeks to months for cats that have become lost outside to be spotted and then to build up trust with somebody else to then come to a shelter. So it's very, very important to continuing your search. Don't give up hope because it is possible to be reunited with your cat, even if it has been weeks since you last saw them. And again, talking to your neighbors to make sure that they know that this is a wanted cat, that this is not just an outdoor cat that they can feed or whatever. This is a wanted cat that you want to make sure is safe. Now, when we are trying to approach lost or stray animals, we really need to pay attention to their body language, okay? The last thing we want to do is have a finder get injured, okay? We don't want an animal that is brought into the shelter now to have a bite history because that's not good for anybody. Plus, it's no fun to get bit for anybody involved. So it's really, really important to look at body language. So if we look at the dog in this picture, we can see how stressed they are, right? I mean, those ears are down. The face just looks horrifically sad right there. They've even got one paw up. That's a stress signal. That's a not enjoying this, right? Their body is crouched. So this might be a sign that they are really fearful, that they're getting really stressed out. You know, the last thing we want to do is try to lunge at this animal because then they could go on the defense, right? They could, start that teeth showing, growling, raise up those hackles, with the little faux hawk down the back. So we really want to pay attention to that, okay? We also need to assess if they're okay, right? Because an animal that is sick or injured is also more likely to act defensively, especially in the face of a stranger. So, pay attention. Are they moving? Do you notice any blood or other injury? If they're moving around, are they doing so at a normal manner or are they limping? Is there anything awkward about how they're moving? Any strange behavior? So any signs that, sometimes they'll like air snap or something. If they're in pain, they might air snap towards the area of their body where it hurts, in a defensive mechanism. So anything that just seems off to you as well, we want to make sure that we are using the utmost caution. Again, because the last thing we want is for a finder to get injured. Now, if you are able to do so, if you notice that a pet is sick or injured before we try to move them, ideally we would want to put a muzzle on, all right? If they are okay with you approaching them. So for instance, let's say that this dog has an injury on its back leg. The body language here is fearful. I may be able to get closer by, using, I'm getting down on a crouched level. I'm talking slow. I'm talking steady, avoiding direct eye contact because that can be seen as threatening. So we don't do a direct eye contact. We look out of the peripheral. We turn our side to the animal as that is less threatening than a full on, frontal approach. So we turn our side. We might get down to their level. I might have some treats. So I'm tossing some treats for them. If they are okay with that, I'm not going to try to touch any injured part of their body until I have a muzzle on them, just to protect them and to protect myself. Now, probably y'all are not carrying around muzzles in your back pocket, and that's perfectly fine. We do have a way to make an emergency muzzle. So I'm going to play this quick video. All you need is a slip lead. So we'll take a look at making this emergency muzzle.
Finn and I are going to demonstrate how to do an emergency muzzle with a leash. So the first thing you do is tie a square knot like that and leave a great big loop. Secondly, you'll put the loop under the dog's chin, pull it tight, and then you'll tie in a bow around the back of it. It's got to go under the ears. Tie it in a bow. And you have an emergency muzzle. Good girly. Oh.
Okay, so obviously every dog that you ever need to put a muzzle on is going to be as calm and well behaved as that dog. So, again, we're paying attention to body language as we go through, right? We're making sure that if at any point they start to show defensive body language, showing teeth, growling, we back off. All right. Okay, so now that we've got the animal, we want to verify, does it have any form of identification? So we want to check the collar. A lot of collars now have engraving or embroidery on them with the owner's contact information. Of course, the tried and true ID tags, but also the rabies tag. So the rabies tag will be linked to owner information. You can call us at Animal Control to get that information. You might also see some breeders still do this with a tattoo inside the ear, or of course a microchip. Now, microchips cannot be scanned with just anything. You need an official microchip scanner. But vet clinics, police departments, animal shelters, humane societies, all of them are going to have microchip scanners. So you can give them a call or typically take the animal there for scanning. Now, if you see a cat with a tipped ear, so like the photo here, where one ear has been snipped, the top part of the ear has been snipped off, then that means that that is a known outdoor cat. Okay, so that cat has probably been TNR'd, trapped, neuter, returned. So they have been taken care of by a vet. There is a caretaker in the area. May know who that is, so I would talk to the neighbors. But typically we want to leave those cats where we found them. Okay, so those are not cats that we necessarily want to bring to a shelter because they have a known home in that area. Rabbits, mice, and rats. Yeah, these can be pets. They can also be wild, so it is important to make sure that you're verifying the differences. Typically, wild rabbits, mice, and rats are all going to have that tawny brown coloration, whereas domestic ones are going to have a lot of different types of coloration. Plus, they're going to be a lot more comfortable hanging out with people. Do the best you can to ascertain if, what breed the animal is, of course, what species, approximately how old do you think they are. Now, we're not asking you to do a vet exam. Don't stick your fingers in their mouth if that would be dangerous to do so. But a general idea of their size. If you're able to quickly check, especially for our doggy friends, whether they're male or female, that can help when you're doing those quick posts, right, on social media. We want to get a good photo of their colorings. If they have any distinguishing characteristics, like if they have one black spot on one back foot on an otherwise white foot, that's a great thing to notice because that's going to help distinguish them between other tuxedo cats. Okay. And we absolutely want to make sure that we note down where they were found. If they're found at your house, you can just provide the closest intersection, or if they were found away from your home, what is the closest major intersection there to give people an idea. Because again, most pets are actually pretty close to home. 70% of lost dogs are found less than a mile from their home. Cats within a couple miles typically. So if you have found a pet, knock on doors, see if anybody recognizes the pet. Even if it's not their pet, they may have seen somebody walking them, carrying them. We may have the same veterinarian. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that people know more than they think they know. You also, if you see somebody looking around carrying a leash, they may be looking for a lost pet. Okay. It's also important to post your own flyer that you found an animal. You can even just post it on your mailbox, right? Like, hey, found this pet. This is where it is. If we took it to animal services, or if you called the local police department, or if you're keeping it at your home, that's important to let people know, like, hey, if anybody knows who this pet is, we want to get them back to their home. Again, social media is going to be great, especially the Nextdoor app is fabulous because it actually lets owners post their resident pets for comparison. So that's a really cool feature there. Local Facebook groups, there are so many, such as Lost Pets of DuPage County, Lost Pets of Illinois. There's even more specific, Lost Dogs of Illinois, Lost Cats of Illinois. So many places that you can just quickly, throw up a photo and throw up that information that you jotted down. And then, of course, calling us, animal services and local law enforcement, because they're, again, one of the first places that people are going to call if their animal is lost. You can also fill out a found report on our website. We use Petco's Love Foundation to do our lost reports. So it's going to be seen, not just by our staff, but by anybody who is going there looking for their pet. Okay, it'll pop up for them as being within a certain, region of the US. So we absolutely want to make sure that we are posting that found. Now, if you are trying to get the animal safely in, we want to make sure that we are containing, because a lot of times our officers or police officers are not able to come out to pick up a stray animal if it's still at large. Okay, so if it's still roaming around the neighborhood, then unfortunately, we don't always have the power, the people power to come out and do that. There are situations where we will, but for the most part, we're going to ask for them to be contained. So you're going to need to, again, keep yourself safe first. All right. Typically, we do not want to chase an animal. That's just going to make them more afraid. As I talked before, we can use food, even just tossing treats in their direction. And if you're not a dog person and you don't have dog treats, that's cool. Probably hot dogs are going to be a better lure for them anyway. Okay. So just anything that you can think of that, cheese, just throw some cheese out there. That's fine. Whatever you happen to have on hand. We want to make sure that we're not, like waving our arms all crazy or talking really loudly or shouting or anything like that. We want to be nice and calm so we don't appear threatening. And contained doesn't necessarily mean that you're holding it in your arms or you have it on a leash. Contained can mean it's in your fenced-in backyard, it is in your garage, it is in the shed in your backyard. It just means that when folks arrive to come and, take it to the stray facility, that they're not running through the neighborhood. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Think about like, oh, if I needed to get an animal, contained safely, what could I use? If you desire, lots of people will do this. They will have a stray animal supply kit. So if you are out and about, for example, if you tend to go on walks in the forest preserve, unfortunately, a lot of animals get lost in the forest preserve. They get away from their owners, things like that. You might just have a little pack that you carry with you or keep in your car. Stinky wet food, great way to lure in an animal because it smells absolutely disgusting and is therefore delicious for them. Water, of course, just in case that they need, if they've been out there for a while, if it's a very hot day. Treats, a slip lead. So slip lead has that loop on the end instead of a clip so that you can kind of lasso around. All right. So especially if they don't have a collar, that's really good to use. A towel or a blanket. So if the pet is injured and unable to move on its own, you can use that towel or blanket kind of like a stretcher. Collapsible bowls if you desire to use those. And then, of course, making sure that we've saved those phone numbers for local police, area veterinarians, rescues, and DCAS. So when we are temporarily housing stray animals, some people will choose to hold on to them for an hour or two. Like, oh, well, I've got a few hours before I need to go to work. I'll hang out. I'll see if anybody comes forward. That's perfectly fine. Uh, Animal Services will take any stray found in DuPage County, keeping in mind that many local police departments have their own little kennel facilities. So ideally, the closer to home we can keep this animal, the better chance of being reunited. Okay. And some finders are willing to hold on to the animal indefinitely. Okay. Now, we do recommend quarantining the animal from your children or other animals because we don't know. There may be fleas. There may be other things going on that we don't want transmitted. Uh, we don't recommend doing a huge amount of food first because if there is an illness going on, that can exacerbate. So just a little bit of food at first to make sure that they can keep it down and okay. We want to do an eye over, right? Do you see them scratching a lot? Does their fur look really rough? Maybe a mange issue, any limping, any signs of pain, any, suspect behavior, because then we probably do want to get them into the shelter where they can be under the care of a staff member who can provide medical assistance. Okay. Now, let's say you find a stray animal and you really want to keep them. Okay. We will post information on behalf of a finder. All right. So you want to go through either us or other law enforcement agencies that do stray holds, so that we can at least get the word out, right? We want to give the family an opportunity to come forward. And if you don't take these proper steps, it can be considered theft because animals are considered property under the law, right? And just because you found a Mustang convertible on the road outside your house does not mean that it's abandoned and you can hotwire it and keep it as yours, right? That's not what that means. Same thing for animals. Just because you found it doesn't automatically make it yours. You do have to go through that period. So we recommend contacting law enforcement agencies to talk about what that process looks like. All right. Some agencies may even be willing to have, you foster the animal while the animal is in going through that stray hold and then providing medical. It really just depends on the situation and what's going on with the animal on whether or not that's going to be a good idea. Because any agency that takes in animals is going to have their own process. And we cannot always guarantee that an animal is going to be eligible to be available for adoption from our agency, right? We may find some behavioral things that, okay, needs a little bit more work than what we can provide here with our limited resources. We're going to transfer to a rescue. All right. So that's always a good thing to talk about when you're considering, if nobody comes forward for this animal, I'd love to keep it. We want to make sure that you're staying on the right side of the law, giving that family the chance to come forward and not dognapping them and taking them across state lines to Kansas and renaming them Copper. Not that I'm personalizing it, but I 1,000% am, because it happened to me, right? So we want to make sure, again, we assume the best in people. So we want to make sure that we give them that chance to come forward. Now, what about those cats we talked about that belong outside? They are community cats. They live outside. What does it look like? So now a lot of people will call them outdoor cats, stray cats, alley cats, feral cats, street cats, barn cats, and tomcats. Some of these are used interchangeably, but there are real meanings for each one of these to know. Stray is typically, we consider a pet cat that has been lost. So that would not necessarily apply to a community cat that's living outdoors with a known caretaker. Feral is typically a cat that is not socialized to people. So they are not going to be friendly around people. Now, typically they can be okay with some people. So like if you have a caregiver that's been giving food, that one person may be able to interact with and touch that cat. But for the most part, they're going to be terribly afraid of people. And these cats, when they come into the shelter, typically need to be found barn placement or community cat placement because they're not going to be able to gain those social skills where they can live in a home with people. Okay. Now, living outdoors does not necessarily mean that they are having a horrible, awful life. Studies have shown that community cats can be as healthy as house cats. They can live just as long. because they have caregivers that are providing food and shelter options. Also, these outdoor cats typically become bonded in the colonies they live in. So just, taking them out and putting them somewhere else doesn't work because they'll come back, and then also more cats will join the colony. So if you have a neighborhood cat that you're concerned about, the importance is figuring out who the caregiver is, who's been providing food, who's been providing shelter, because we want to make sure that they have all the information that they need. Cheap food may be easiest, but it can also cause medical problems because it's lacking in certain nutrients that can cause medical issues. We do not want to provide cow's milk for cats. It can cause massive upset stomach problems. If they have cats living in, their yard, we want to make sure that they know not to use those weed killers or fertilizers because that can also, build up those toxins. If the cats are changing weight, we might need to trap them and get them into the vet. Feral Fixers is the community cat organization for DuPage County, and they have a wealth of information for providing dietary supplements, providing medications to help keep these cats, as healthy as we possibly can. We do not want to let feral cats into our home. So you do not want a cat that hates people trapped in a building with people, okay? Or your great Aunt Ida or whoever, all right? It can create a snowball effect. So instead, what we want to do is trap, neuter, and return. Okay, this is the humane option for helping community cats because it is the most effective way to control populations. If you get rid of all the cats, more cats will move into an area and then they are breeding uncontrollably. So the idea is that you have these cats, they have this territory, but they cannot breed out of control. So when they are trapped and neutered and returned, they are vaccinated, they are ear tipped, and they are fixed. So they are spayed or neutered before they are returned to their area. So what about those babies? Oh goodness, if we found a kitten, what do we do with it? Well, first off, just because you found a kitten by itself does not necessarily mean that it's an orphan, all right? Unless you are aware of a deceased adult cat in the area, or if you know that, something happened to the mom. Mom's got stuff to do, all right? So mom's gonna leave her babies and she's gonna go do her stuff. And sometimes, this will shock you, kids are stupid and don't do what their moms tell them to do. And so they will just like wander away from where mom put them. And all of a sudden they appear to be an abandoned orphan. This is not always the case. A lot of times mom will actually be on the look for her kitten and bring it back to where it's supposed to be. You can offer good shelter options for mom to utilize, okay? But the point is that picking up a kitten without a plan can be not disastrous, but it can be very, very stressful for all involved because nursing kittens require a ton of care. So when we get bottle babies in at the shelter, that means that a volunteer foster or staff member is waking up every 2, 3, or 4 hours in the night, feeding that baby, and then monitoring them, helping them potty, all of that. When Mama Cat can do all of that a lot easier than we can, because not every bottle baby that we get in actually wants that bottle. No, they're used to having that nice warm nipple from mom, and they struggle with the change. So it can be very, very stressful on the kitten as well. So, and we want to only intervene if we know that the kitten is in danger. So for example, we see that they are in an unsafe location. If they are cold, injured, or constantly crying, if you haven't seen mom in a couple days. So let's say you have a community cat, had kittens underneath your deck. You typically see mom when you're having your morning coffee. Okay, it's been 2 days and you haven't seen mom. Then that might be a time to check on those babies, okay? Or we can intervene when those kittens are old enough to be separated from mom and socialize them so that they can become indoor house pets, which is going to be a safer option for them. Okay. You can always reach out to feral fixers for care resources to see what they can do. Okay, so when I say 5 weeks old, what do I mean by that? Well, 5 weeks old typically means what we think of as a kitten. All right. So they are pretty steady on their feet. They are playing with toys. They're playing with their siblings. They're interested in you. Now, coming from outside, they may still be a little scared of you. But what we don't want is to get these tiny, tiny little fragile guys that are going to need that constant care when mom will provide it for free. All right. And we can always make sure to get mom trapped as well to bring her in so that hopefully this is the last litter of babies she has to take care of. So a little bit more about feral fixers. I've got their contact information here for you. They provide education, training, and resources. They are a volunteer organization, okay? And they can provide traps, transportation to and from a spay-neuter clinic, and also help in paying fees as their funds permit, okay? So if you have a community cat or you have neighbors, they are a great resource to reach out to get information to make sure that we're not snowballing that overpopulation problem and creating more and more and more cats that need homes. For outside DuPage County, there are lots of other organizations as well. So I highly encourage, if you have friends and family in need of these resources, that they reach out to their local animal controls, because they're going to have a good list of people to help. Now, a stray animal comes in. It looks pathetic. You really want to help it. What can you do? Well, I'm going to make a quick plug for fostering, because fostering is just so beneficial to the animals. The shelter is stressful. It smells weird. There are strangers there. There are weird sounds. The lights buzz, right? I mean, it's fluorescent. It's not fun. It's not a home. Okay. And stress can cause problems. It can exacerbate behavior, medical problems. It also makes it harder to get to know them, to know what they're like, to know what kind of home they would be a good fit for. And really, pets belong in a home. They don't belong in an animal shelter. The animal shelter is just a temporary solution while we try to find them a placement. So it lets us see their true personalities. They get more individualized attention. I mean, when you think we care for approximately 200 animals at a time, and there are 5 people in charge of animal care at our shelter, I mean, that math is just not great. So more positive interactions with people are going to make the pet's life so much easier. We will foster during stray hold, meaning that, we will give the family a time to come forward. Typically, that's going to be 7 business days, could be a little bit longer depending on what's going on. Once that time period has passed, then the animal is going to be, put through some evaluations, medical and behavioral, to see what we think the best path forward would be. And if an animal is already in a foster home by the time we deem it is eligible for adoption, and that foster family wants to adopt, more power to you, right? We're not going to pull an animal from a happy home where everybody's living harmoniously. Go for it, okay? So sometimes with some of our really desirable animals, those littles, some of those specialized breeds of dogs or cats, that can be the way to go. All right. Now, understand that during that stray hold, if the family does come forward, you will need to bring the animal back to the shelter so they can be reunited with their family. So in general, we ask fosters to provide love and attention, take photos, give us feedback, updates, monitor any health concerns, and let us know. Follow diet and medication protocols that we expect. See to routine grooming and medical needs. Make sure that the animal space is clean, and transport their foster animal to the shelter as needed for medical appointments, and if you decide not to adopt, for any adoption appointments. With us, we do all sorts of fun fostering. So this was a little puppy that was born blind. It's actually born without eyeballs. So we had a foster family step up, and they fostered to adopt. So they were very excited. They fostered through stray hold, through its medical checks, got its spay neutered, and then when it was time to adopt, they brought all the supplies back to the shelter and adopted that adorable little puppy, and it was a match made in heaven. They were so happy. Um, so we do long-term fostering. So basically, if the pet is going through a medical thing that they need until they're eligible for adoption. Short-term, or that stray hold, where we're looking for what placement is best for them. Okay, so just to wind down our presentation for today, I've got just a little bit of information that you can use to share with folks about why there are so many pets in shelters. The numbers are astronomical. They're insane. How many pets wind up in shelters every single year? It's in the millions, okay? And, we are very fortunate in DuPage County that we have a very high save rate, but not every shelter has that luxury, especially in the South where breeding happens year round. There are a lot of animals that unfortunately are euthanized through no fault of their own. There's just not enough space to put everybody. So this is information that you can use to help to stop some of these practices just by educating people on what's going on. Now, we never ever want to shame somebody for their choice, but when we are talking to somebody about, information in the animal world, it's always just good. Again, be that smart friend, know the facts, know how they can help, okay? So pet stores are there to make money. Some of the puppy mill breeders are the same way. There are even some rescues who are partnered with puppy mills. So it looks like you are adopting from a rescue unless you do your homework on where that animal came from. So it is always very important to ask, where does this animal come from? All right. I got no problem with breeders who follow the ethical guidelines. All right. There are absolutely wonderful breeders out there. You just need to ask questions to make sure that that's what you're getting, instead of situations like this where you have cages on top of cages on top of cages. And this is true of all types of animals, not just cats and dogs, but rabbits, guinea pigs, anything like that. Okay. Pet stores are also kind of notorious for not always knowing the proper breed of the proper sex of the animal that they sell. So you might have 2 male rabbits that get pregnant. Well, that's probably not right, is it? So we've had multiple instances of accidental litters come in because the pet stores neglected to do a thorough medical examination. So that's another benefit of adopting from a rescue, is that you can ask about their medical history and what the veterinarian said during their check, okay? Also, most pet stores and those unethical breeders will not take their animals back. So if something happens, even if it's through no fault of the animal, then all of a sudden that animal may wind up in a shelter, okay, through no fault of their own. So reputable rescues, reputable breeders will take their animals back, okay? We have so many different types of animals at DuPage County Animal Services, and if we don't have the kind of animal you're looking for, you can betcha we have a rescue that we've worked with that does. So absolutely talk to them. Animals in shelters are not broken. They just had hard luck, okay? A lot of times they're not there because they screwed up. It's because somebody let them down. So we want to make sure that we give them a chance. Talking to friends and family about spaying and neutering. It is insane how many kittens can come from one pair of cats. Okay, now this number is a little crazy because this implies that every litter was completely full and every single kitten survived. The more realistic number is probably closer to around 20,000. But think about how many cats that is. Okay, think about how many cats that is. That is still an insane number. And there are a lot of myths around spay and neuter that we need to dispel, all right? Spaying and neutering can actually curb behavioral issues, especially instances where like cats are spraying or male cats are trying to run away from home to go find a lady. It can also prevent a lot of reproductive cancers and medical conditions like pyometra, where the uterus actually becomes infected, and these disorders and diseases can be fatal. Okay, now there are low-cost options in our area. I have some of them listed here. You may need to wait for a little while because, of course, they do tend to fill up. For anybody that participates in the LINK program or is receiving Social Security benefits, Social Security disability benefits, I apologize, Social Security disability benefits, they are eligible for our voucher program. So you can apply for that through our website, and it provides 2 spay or neuters for their pets during their lifetime. So if they have a pet right now, they can get that taken care of. If they get another pet later on, they can get that taken care of. Or if they have 2 pets right now and they want to do, they can do both at the same time. Okay, so that voucher includes a free spay or neuter at a vet of their choice that participates in the program, as well as vaccinations and microchip as needed. So it's a wonderful program. Get the word out for those who are eligible. They just need to be a DuPage County resident. And as I said, either participate in the LINK program or Social Security disability benefits. Okay, so why should we microchip? Oh, this is so important. Why should we microchip? Because it's an ID tag that can't ever fall off. All right. Now it is about the size of a grain of rice, a little bit bigger, and it is inserted via a needle. It's like what I tell the kids, yeah, you get a shot and it hurts, but does it hurt forever? No. Hurts for a little bit and then it never hurts again, and that microchip stays there. It's not a GPS, okay? So we're not tracking your pet's whereabouts or anything like that. It is just a unique number saved on a RFID chip that can be connected to your information. So available at veterinary clinics and at DCAS, currently free through the end of September. You just need to call and make an appointment. We are doing free microchips right now. So call and make an appointment for that. Not just for dogs. We've done cats, rabbits, typically those that may have access to the outside. We want to make sure that they're microchipped as well. Now, if your pet has a microchip, we want to make sure that it has the correct information on it, okay? So you can check if your chip is registered by going to the AAHA chip registry, put in that number, and it'll tell if it's registered and the last time that information was updated. So if you are moving, if you are changing any of your information, email or contact number, you want to make sure to update that microchip. Some companies may try to charge you. There are also free registries you can use instead, okay? And if you are rehoming a pet or have taken in a pet from somebody else, you want to make sure to update that information. I don't know how many times we have had a pet come in that's microchipped. We contact the person on the chip and they're like, oh yeah, I gave that pet to a friend many years ago, but I lost their phone number. I don't know where they are anymore. Okay, so we want to make sure that it has your contact information there. So now this goes beyond minimum requirements to make sure that you're a responsible pet guardianship, okay? And this is a big one. Make sure that you're allowed to have pets where you are, all right? Especially if you are hoping to help stray animals. There is nothing worse than taking in a stray animal off the street, falling in love with it, and then having your landlord find out and threatening all kinds of things, okay? So make sure that you know what the rules are for where you live, okay? If you are looking for service or support animals, there are all sorts of laws that govern that, okay? So if you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer them, but that's little bit more than you can't just pick up any old animal and call them your service animal. There's more to it than that. But once you have a service animal, you have absolute rights under the law to guarantee housing for that animal. Okay. If your pet tends to hang out by the door, you might want to start a new routine where when you walk in, we don't greet at the door. We walk in and we go into another room, and that's where we do our greeting so that they're not as prone to just hanging out right there. Okay. Um, Providing positive training is the most efficient way to deal with behavior issues. So giving rewards for desired behaviors. That's what it is, right? It's like I get a paycheck for my job. I love my job. Wouldn't do it without the paycheck though. Okay. So we just want to make sure that we are giving payment for services rendered when our pets do the things that we want them to. And always make sure you have a backup plan in place, okay? Talk to friends and family. You know, if something happened to you, where would your pets go? You know, could they go back to the rescue that you got them from? Or the breeder? Do you have a friend or family? Do you have information on where your pet could go? You can also help anybody looking to rehome. There are specific rehoming websites. We can keep these animals out of the shelters and just talk to people. You know, there are lots of ways, nefarious ways to get cats and dogs. For the most part, these rehoming sites are people just trying to do the right thing. They're looking for animals that need a home. Okay. So we're more than happy to assist you with that. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to us at Animal Services. We are always happy to help and to provide assistance and further guidance. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you being here tonight. And if you have any questions, please feel free to share them now. I'll hang out for just a little bit.
Oh, thank you so much. There was like way more good information in that than I ever thought. Wow. All right, so I have a question for you, and
Sure.
if somebody out there has a question, they can go ahead and type that into the chat or Q&A. So my question is, my village where I live, they offer pet registration, and you pay like a little fee to
Mhm.
register your pet with the village. So does that have any bearing on if you lose your pet, they're more likely to know what it is, like what it looks like, how helping you find it, or does that not matter?
So typically with local registrations, a lot of that is one, making sure that all the pets are up to date on their rabies, right? So that we're all complying with the rabies laws. There's not necessarily a central database where all the pets and their photos and everything like that is kept for access. Now, I'm not sure, depending on your town, do they provide a tag with that registration information?
They may, and we have pet insurance that we
Mm-hmm.
got last year, and we were thinking about also registering them because we know we definitely have their rabies up to date.
Yeah.
But that's something I should look into. I'm not sure if they also provide a tag.
Yeah. So the rabies tag is that you get through the county, through DCAS, is required by law anytime your pet is off your property. Okay. So it's required as part of their, um, you know, wallet or whatever, they want to make sure that you have it when they leave home because one, it provides guaranteed proof my pet is up to date on their rabies, they are in compliance with the law. And two, if something happens, it's something that can be used to reunite if they get lost. So those are two of the main benefits of actually having that rabies tag on their harness or their collars or attached to whatever you use when you take them off site um, for that reason. The local ones typically are more making sure that everybody is staying in compliance with, like I said, rabies, or also with zoning because there are pet limits
Hmm.
through that are based on local ordinances. So each town is a little bit different in how many pets are allowed per household. So a lot of times that registration is just to make sure that we don't get these hoarding situations where we have 30 dogs living, in a two-bedroom household kind of situation.
Yeah.
Where everybody is in very poor shape. So that's one of the measures that local governments have taken to try to prevent situations like that.
Okay, all right, cool. Thank you.
Mhm,
Yeah, and I also have another question about volunteering. So obviously you do get paid for what you do,
mhm.
but do you also have like a fleet of volunteers that come and help out or not so much?
Absolutely,
Okay.
we do have wonderful volunteers. We're right around 250 right now, I believe. A lot of them are foster family volunteers, so
Oh,
you can get volunteer hours. Uh, by fostering. So some of our volunteers have actually never stepped foot in the shelter,
okay.
because like the entire family will volunteer to foster an animal, and maybe mom or dad or somebody will take the animal to their appointments. But the kids, they're still very active participants, but they're at home. Their volunteer hours are happening at home. So, right now our shelter is under construction, and one of the things that we are hoping with our new addition, hopefully finished within the next 6 months, is that we'll be able to open it up to broader volunteer positions. So anybody interested in volunteering should keep an eye on our website this coming spring. We're hoping to be able to open up a lot more volunteer positions as we have space for more bodies.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, well, I'll try and remember to help spread the word. I know we have a volunteer page on the library's website that lists all of the
Wonderful.
local places that need volunteers. So we'll make sure we have you guys on that list too.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you this evening. Thank you so much again for such an informative talk. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, or we'll see you at future programs, okay?
Okay, take care, everybody. Have a
Great.
good night.